Start. MTC. Unit 16 No Analysis. Starting from birth, babies are immediately attracted to faces. Scientists were able to show this by having babies look at two simple images, one that looks more like a face than the other. By measuring where the babies looked, scientists found that the babies looked at the face-like image more than they looked at the non-face image. Even though babies have poor eyesight, they prefer to look at faces. But why? One reason babies might like faces is because of something called evolution. Evolution involves changes to the structures of an organism, such as the brain, that occur over many generations. These changes help the organisms to survive, making them alert to enemies. By being able to recognize faces from afar or in the dark, humans were able to know someone was coming and protect themselves from possible danger. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. Unit 16 No 01. Understanding how to develop respect for and a knowledge of other cultures begins with re-examining the Golden Rule. I treat others in the way I want to be treated. This rule makes sense on some level. If we treat others as well as we want to be treated, we will be treated well in return. This rule works well in a monocultural setting, where everyone is working within the same cultural framework. In a multicultural setting, however, where words, gestures, beliefs, and views may have different meanings, this rule has an unintended result. It can send a message that my culture is better than yours. It can also create a frustrating situation where we believe we are doing what is right, but what we are doing is not being interpreted in the way in which it was meant. This miscommunication can lead to problems. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. Unit 16 No 02. In a study, a researcher pretending to be a volunteer surveyed a California neighborhood, asking residents if they would allow a large sign reading "Drive carefully" to be displayed on their front lawns. To help them understand what it would look like, the volunteer showed his participants a picture of the large sign blocking the view of a beautiful house. Naturally, most people refused, but in one particular group, an incredible 76% actually approved. 76. The reason that they agreed was this. 2 weeks earlier, these residents had been asked by another volunteer to make a small commitment to display a tiny sign that read "Be a safe driver" in their windows. 2. Since it was such a small and simple request, nearly all of them agreed. The astonishing result was that the initial small commitment deeply influenced their willingness to accept the much larger request 2 weeks later. 2. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. Unit 16 No 03. If you had to write a math equation, you probably wouldn't write 28 plus 14 equals 42. It would take too long to write and it would be hard to read quickly. You would write 28 plus 14 equals 42. 28 plus 14 equals 42. Chemistry is the same way. Chemists have to write chemical equations all the time, and it would take too long to write and read if they had to spell everything out. So chemists use symbols, just like we do in math. A chemical formula lists all the elements that form each molecule and uses a small number to the bottom right of an element's symbol to stand for the number of atoms of that element. For example, the chemical formula for water is H2O. H2O. That tells us that a water molecule is made up of 2 hydrogen, H and 2, atoms and 1 oxygen, O, atom. H2O. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. Unit 16 No 04. Imagine yourself at a party. It is dark and a group of friends ask you to take a picture of them. You grab your camera, point, and shoot your friends. The camera automatically turns on the flash as there is not enough light available to produce a correct exposure. The result is half of your friends appear in the picture with 2 bright red circles instead of their eyes. This is a common problem called the red eye effect. It is caused because the light from the flash penetrates the eyes through the pupils, and then gets reflected to the camera from the back of the eyes where a large amount of blood is present. This blood is the reason why the eyes look red in the photograph. This effect is more noticeable when there is not much light in the environment. This is because pupils dilate when it is dark, allowing more light to get inside the eye and producing a larger red eye effect. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. Unit 16 No 05. Mirrors and other smooth, shiny surfaces reflect light. We see reflections from such surfaces because the rays of light form an image on the retina of our eyes. Such images are always reversed. Look at yourself in a mirror, wink your right eye and your left eye seems to wink back at you. You can use a mirror to send a coded message to a friend. Stand a mirror upright on the table, so that a piece of paper on the table can be clearly seen in the mirror. Now write a message that looks right when you look in the mirror. Keep your eyes on the reflected image while you are writing and not on your paper. After a little practice, it will be easier to write backwards. When your friend receives such a message, he will be able to read it by holding the paper up to a mirror. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. Unit 16 No 06. Students work to get good grades even when they have no interest in their studies. People seek job advancement even when they are happy with the jobs they already have. It's like being in a crowded football stadium, watching the crucial play. A spectator several rows in front stands up to get a better view, and a chain reaction follows. Soon everyone is standing, just to be able to see as well as before. Everyone is on their feet rather than sitting, but no one's position has improved. And if someone refuses to stand, he might just as well not be at the game at all. When people pursue goods that are positional, they can't help being in the rat race. To choose not to run is to lose. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. Unit 16 No 07. When we compare human and animal desire, we find many extraordinary differences. Animals tend to eat with their stomachs, and humans with their brains. When animals' stomachs are full, they stop eating, but humans are never sure when to stop. When they have eaten as much as their bellies can take, they still feel empty, they still feel an urge for further gratification. This is largely due to anxiety, to the knowledge that a constant supply of food is uncertain. Therefore, they eat as much as possible while they can. It is due, also, to the knowledge that, in an insecure world, pleasure is uncertain. Therefore, the immediate pleasure of eating must be exploited to the full, even though it does violence to the digestion. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. Unit 16 No 08. Ideas about how much disclosure is appropriate vary among cultures. Those born in the United States tend to be high disclosers, even showing a willingness to disclose information about themselves to strangers. This may explain why Americans seem particularly easy to meet and are good at cocktail party conversation. On the other hand, Japanese tend to do little disclosing about themselves to others except to the few people with whom they are very close. In general, Asians do not reach out to strangers. They do, however, show great care for each other, since they view harmony as essential to relationship improvement. They work hard to prevent those they view as outsiders from getting information they believe to be unfavorable. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. Unit 16 No 09. A god called Moini was defeated by a rival god called Dromerdiner in a terrible battle up in the stars. Moini Dromerdiner. Moini fell out of the stars down to Tasmania to die. Moini Tasmania. Before he died, he wanted to give a last blessing to his final resting place, so he decided to create humans. But he was in such a hurry, knowing he was dying, that he forgot to give them knees, and he absent-mindedly gave them big tails like kangaroos, which meant they couldn't sit down. Then he died. The people hated having kangaroo tails and no knees, and they cried out to the heavens for help. Dromerdiner heard their cry and came down to Tasmania to see what the matter was. Dromerdiner, Tasmania. He took pity on the people, gave them bendable knees and cut off their inconvenient kangaroo tails so they could all sit down at last. Then they lived happily ever after. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. Unit 16, Number 10. Making a small request that people will accept will naturally increase the chances of their accepting a bigger request afterwards. For instance, a salesperson might request you to sign a petition to prevent cruelty against animals. This is a very small request, and most people will do what the salesperson asks. After this, the salesperson asks you if you are interested in buying any cruelty-free cosmetics from their store. Given the fact that most people agree to the prior request to sign the petition, they will be more likely to purchase the cosmetics. They make such purchases because the salesperson takes advantage of a human tendency to be consistent in their words and actions. People want to be consistent and will keep saying yes if they have already said it once. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. Unit 16, Number 11. Many studies have shown that people's health and subjective well-being are affected by ethnic relations. Members of minority groups in general have poorer health outcomes than the majority group. But that difference remains even when obvious factors, such as social class and access to medical services, are controlled for. This suggests that dominance relations have their own effect on people's health. How could that be the case? One possible answer is stress. From multiple physiological studies, we know that encounters with members of other ethnic racial categories, even in the relatively safe environment of laboratories, trigger stress responses. Minority individuals have many encounters with majority individuals, each of which may trigger such responses. However minimal these effects may be, their frequency may increase total stress, which would account for part of the health disadvantage of minority individuals. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. Unit 16, Number 12. We always have a lot of bacteria around us, as they live almost everywhere in air, soil, in different parts of our bodies, and even in some of the foods we eat. But do not worry. Most bacteria are good for us. Some live in our digestive systems and help us digest our food, and some live in the environment and produce oxygen so that we can breathe and live on Earth. But unfortunately, a few of these wonderful creatures can sometimes make us sick. This is when we need to see a doctor, who may prescribe medicines to control the infection. But what exactly are these medicines and how do they fight with bacteria? These medicines are called antibiotics, which means against the life of bacteria. Antibiotics either kill bacteria or stop them from growing. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. Unit 16, Number 13. To be successful, you need to understand the vital difference between believing you will succeed, and believing you will succeed easily. Put another way, it's the difference between being a realistic optimist, and an unrealistic optimist. Realistic optimists believe they will succeed, but also believe they have to make success happen, through things like careful planning and choosing the right strategies. They recognize the need for giving serious thought to how they will deal with obstacles. This preparation only increases their confidence in their own ability to get things done. Unrealistic optimists, on the other hand, believe that success will happen to them, that the universe will reward them for all their positive thinking, or that somehow they will be transformed overnight into the kind of person for whom obstacles don't exist anymore. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. Unit 16, Number 14. In 1824, Peru won its freedom from Spain. 1824. Soon after, Simon Bolívar, the general who had led the liberating forces, called a meeting to write the first version of the constitution for the new country. Simon Bolívar. After the meeting, the people wanted to do something special for Bolívar to show their appreciation for all he had done for them, so they offered him a gift of 1,000,000 pesos, a very large amount of money in those days. Bolivar accepted the gift and then asked, "How many slaves are there in Peru?" Bolivar. He was told there were about 3,000. 3. And how much does a slave sell for? He wanted to know. About 350 pesos for a man, was the answer. 350. Then, said Bolivar, "I'll add whatever is necessary to this 1,000,000 pesos you have given me and I will buy all the slaves in Peru and set them free." Bolivar. It makes no sense to free a nation, unless all its citizens enjoy freedom as well. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. Unit 16 number 15. The next time you're out under a clear, dark sky, look up. If you've picked a good spot for stargazing, you'll see a sky full of stars, shining and twinkling like thousands of brilliant jewels. But this amazing sight of stars can also be confusing. Try and point out a single star to someone. Chances are, that person will have a hard time knowing exactly which star you're looking at. It might be easier if you describe patterns of stars. You could say something like, "See that big triangle of bright stars there?" Or, "Do you see those 5 stars that look like a big letter W?" W. When you do that, you're doing exactly what we all do when we look at the stars. We look for patterns, not just so that we can point something out to someone else, but also because that's what we humans have always done. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. Unit 16 number 16. The basic difference between an AI robot and a normal robot is the ability of the robot and its software to make decisions, and learn and adapt to its environment based on data from its sensors. AI. To be a bit more specific, the normal robot shows deterministic behaviors. That is, for a set of inputs, the robot will always produce the same output. For instance, if faced with the same situation, such as running into an obstacle, then the robot will always do the same thing, such as go around the obstacle to the left. An AI robot, however, can do 2 things the normal robot cannot: make decisions and learn from experience. AI. It will adapt to circumstances, and may do something different each time a situation is faced. The AI robot may try to push the obstacle out of the way, or make up a new route, or change goals.